The ground shook again as another alien bomb hit the city. Captain Jake Morrison pressed his back against the broken wall and counted the seconds between explosions. 3, 4, 5. The pattern was getting faster. That meant the enemy was getting closer. "Captain, we need to move now," Lieutenant Lisa Hayes called out from across the rubble-filled street. Her voice was calm, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. They had been fighting the Zephyrian Collective for 3 days straight, and their ammunition was running low. Jake looked at the group of civilians huddled behind an overturned vehicle. 12 people, including 4 children. They were the last group they needed to get to the evacuation point. After that, New Denver would be lost forever. "All right, people," Jake said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "We move in 30 seconds. Stay low, stay quiet, and follow Lieutenant Hayes. No matter what happens, keep moving toward the underground tunnels." The youngest child, a girl maybe 6 years old, looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are we going to be safe?" she asked. Jake knelt down beside her. "Yes, we are, I promise." He hoped he was telling the truth. They moved through the empty streets like ghosts. The once beautiful city of New Denver was now a wasteland of broken buildings and smoking craters. Jake remembered when this place was full of life, with markets and schools and families walking in the parks. Now it looked like the surface of a dead planet. The alien ships flew overhead in perfect formation. Their black hulls blocked out the sun, casting shadows across the ruined city. Jake had seen these ships destroy entire fleets. Human weapons barely scratched their shields. It seemed impossible that humanity could win this war. They reached the entrance to the underground tunnel system just as another wave of bombs began to fall. Lisa guided the civilians into the safety of the tunnels while Jake watched the sky. More alien ships were coming. Always more ships. "That's the last of them," Lisa said as she climbed back up from the tunnel entrance. "The evacuation teams are taking them to the safe zones." Jake nodded. "Good. Now we need to get back to headquarters. Command needs to know that the North Sector has fallen." They made their way through the tunnel system, following the emergency lights that still worked. The tunnels were full of people now. Families, soldiers, anyone who could not get off the planet before the attack began. Some of them looked up hopefully when they saw Jake's uniform, as if he might have good news. He wished he did. The command center was set up in an old subway station deep underground. The walls were lined with communication equipment and tactical displays. General Pat Williams stood in the center, looking at a holographic map of the city. The map showed red zones, where the aliens controlled territory. There was a lot more red than blue. "Report, Captain," General Williams said without looking up. "North Sector is lost, sir," Jake replied. "We evacuated all remaining civilians, but the aliens have full control now. They're setting up some kind of energy weapon on the high ground." "General." Williams finally looked at him. The general was an old man who had been fighting aliens for 20 years. His face showed every one of those years. "How long do you think we have before they break through our defenses?" Jake thought about the alien formations he had seen. "Maybe 6 hours, sir. 8 if we're lucky." "Then we're out of time." "General." Williams turned to the communication officer. "Send the retreat order to all units. We fall back to the final defensive line." As the orders went out, Jake found himself sitting on a supply crate next to an older soldier he had never met before. The man was maybe 60 years old with gray hair and scars on his hands. His uniform had the markings of a veteran from the early days of the war. "You look like you could use some good news," the old soldier said. Jake almost laughed. "Unless you've got a secret fleet hiding somewhere, I don't think there is any good news." The old man smiled. "Well, funny you should mention that. You ever hear of the USS Reaper's Edge?" "No," Jake said. "Should I have?" "Most people haven't. It's just a story that gets told sometimes, usually when things look really bad. Like now." The old man took a drink from his water bottle. "They say it's the biggest warship ever built. More guns than a battle fleet, armor thick as a space station, and a crew that disappeared from all the records." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Disappeared?" "That's the story. About 15 years ago, the military was working on some kind of superweapon project. They built this massive ship and staffed it with volunteers who agreed to have their names erased from all official records. Made them into ghosts, you might say. And then what happened? The old soldier shrugged. Nobody knows for sure. Some say the project was canceled. Some say the ship was destroyed in testing. But the old spacers, the ones who've been out in the deep dark, they tell different stories. They say the ship is still out there waiting. Waiting for what? For the day when humanity really needs it. Jake looked around at the command center full of desperate people and broken equipment. Well, if that day is ever going to come, it would be today. The old soldier nodded. That's what I was thinking too. Before Jake could ask more questions, the communication system started buzzing with incoming messages. Lieutenant Lisa Hayes ran over to him, her face pale. Captain, we're getting reports from all across the sector. Ships are appearing on long-range sensors and then disappearing. The readings don't match anything in our databases. Jake stood up quickly. Alien ships? That's just it, sir. They're too big to be alien ships, way too big, and they're not using any technology we recognize. The old soldier smiled and stood up slowly. Well, I'll be damned. Maybe the stories are true after all. Jake felt something he had not felt in months. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had one more card to play in this war. Far above them, in the black of space, something moved in the shadows between the stars. Something big enough to change everything. The evacuation ships lifted off from New Denver just as the alien ground forces reached the city center. Jake Morrison watched from the pilot's seat of the last transport as his home burned below. The Zephyrian forces had won another victory, and humanity had lost another world. All civilian ships are away, Captain, Lisa Hayes reported from the co-pilot seat. We're the last ones out. Jake nodded and pushed the engines to full power. Behind them, alien fighters were starting to give chase. The transport was not built for combat, but it was fast enough to reach the jump point before the enemy could catch them. 3 days later, they were hiding in an asteroid field near the Kepler system. The transport had joined up with other refugee ships from New Denver. In total, they had saved about 8,000 people. It was not much compared to the 2 million who had lived on the planet, but it was something. Commander Rick Torres was running patrol duty with his small squadron of fighters when his sensors picked up something strange. He was flying through the Nebula Graveyard, a dangerous region filled with the wreckage of old battles. Most pilots avoided this area because the radiation played tricks with navigation systems. Control, this is Recon 7. Rick spoke into his radio. I'm getting some weird readings out here. What kind of readings, 7? Came the reply from the command ship. Rick looked at his display again. Big energy signature, maybe 10 kilometers long, but it keeps disappearing when I try to get a lock on it. Probably just interference from the nebula. Come back to formation. But Rick was curious. He had been flying for 15 years, and he knew the difference between sensor ghosts and real contacts. This was real. He changed course toward the signal. What he found made him forget how to breathe. It was a ship, but not like any ship he had ever seen. It was massive, easily the size of a small city. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, and covered with weapon ports that could swallow his fighter whole. The ship was drifting silent and dark like a sleeping giant. Control, you need to see this, Rick whispered into his radio. Before anyone could respond, his warning system started screaming. 3 Zephyrian hunter ships had found his squadron and were moving in for the kill. Rick's wingmen tried to run, but the alien ships were faster. Recon 7. We've got multiple hostile contacts closing on your position, Control said. Get out of there now. Rick turned his fighter toward open space, but he knew they would not make it. The alien ships were already in weapons range. He watched his wingman's ship disappear in a ball of fire and prepared to die. Then the giant ship came alive. Lights appeared along its hull like stars being born. Weapon ports that had been dark suddenly glowed with deadly energy. The massive ship turned with impossible grace for something so large and fired a single shot from its main guns. The 3 alien ships simply ceased to exist. Rick stared at his sensors in shock. The alien ships had not exploded or broken apart. They had been completely destroyed, turned into atoms in less than a second. Whatever weapons the giant ship carried were beyond anything he had ever seen. "Control, did you see that?" Rick asked. "See. What, 7? We lost your signal for a moment there." Rick looked back toward where the giant ship had been, but it was gone. Only empty space and the fading energy signatures of the destroyed alien ships remained. Back on Earth, Colonel Amy Parker was having trouble sleeping. As head of military intelligence, she had access to classified information that kept her awake at night. The war was going badly. Very badly. Humanity was losing on every front, and their best estimates said they had maybe 6 months before the aliens reached Earth itself. She was reviewing casualty reports when her computer chimed with an urgent message. It was from deep space monitoring stations scattered across human territory. All of them were reporting the same thing: massive energy signatures appearing and disappearing without warning. Amy pulled up the files and started reading. Ships were reporting brief contacts with unknown vessels. The descriptions were all similar: huge, heavily armed, and using technology that did not match any known human or alien designs. But whenever investigation teams arrived, they found nothing. She cross-referenced the reports with classified military files and found something interesting. The pattern of sightings seemed to match old patrol routes from a canceled project called Phantom Fleet. Amy had heard rumors about this project during her early days in intelligence, but she had never seen the actual files. It took her 3 hours to find the right access codes. When she finally opened the Phantom Fleet files, she understood why they had been buried so deep. The project had been real, and it had been much bigger than anyone imagined. According to the files, the military had built not 1, but 7 massive warships using experimental technology. The ships had been crewed by volunteers who agreed to have their names removed from all records. Officially, these people had died in training accidents or transferred to classified assignments. In reality, they had become ghosts, operating in complete secrecy. The lead ship was called the USS Reaper's Edge, commanded by Captain Ben Carter. Amy found a single photo of Carter in the files. He was a man in his 30s with serious eyes, and the kind of face that belonged on recruitment posters. The file said he had volunteered for the project after losing his family in an alien attack. Amy printed out the most important files and locked them in her personal safe. If these ghost ships were real, they represented humanity's best hope for survival. But she needed to be careful. There were people in the government who would do anything to keep this information secret. 3 systems away, War Commander Vexitar was reviewing reports from his fleet commanders. The humans were retreating on all fronts, just as planned. His tactical advisor, Sub-Commander Krelnoth, approached with a concerned expression. "Commander, we are receiving strange reports from our hunter squadrons," Krelnoth said. "What kind of reports?" Vexitar asked without looking up from his battle plans. "Several patrols have simply disappeared. No distress signals, no wreckage, nothing. They were there one moment and gone the next." Vexitar finally looked at his advisor. "Human ambush tactics?" "That is what we thought at first, but one surviving pilot reported seeing a massive ship before his squadron was destroyed. He said it was larger than anything in the human fleet." "Impossible. Our intelligence shows that the humans have no ships larger than their heavy cruisers." Krelnoth hesitated. "Sir, humans have a reputation for building weapons in secret. Perhaps we should investigate these reports more carefully." Vexitar dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "The humans are desperate. They will say anything to make us afraid. Continue with the advance toward their home system. This war will be over soon." But deep in space, something was watching the alien fleet. Something that had been waiting 15 years for this moment. The ghosts were finally ready to reveal themselves. Captain Ben Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Reaper's Edge and looked out at the stars. For 15 years, he and his crew had lived in the shadows, fighting a secret war that nobody knew about. They had no names in any official records, no families who could write to them, no home ports where they could rest. They were ghosts, and ghosts belonged in the dark. But now the darkness was ending. "Captain, all systems are at full power," reported Commander Nina Walsh from the weapons station. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who could destroy a battleship with the press of a button. The main guns are ready for combat operations. Ben nodded. Thank you, Nina. Danny, how's our reactor holding up? Chief Engineer Danny Brooks looked up from his control panel. He was a big man with oil-stained hands who understood the ship's experimental reactor better than anyone alive. Running smooth as silk, Captain. We've got enough power to fight for a week straight if we need to. The reactor was the heart of their ship, built using technology they had found in ancient alien ruins on the edge of known space. It produced more energy than anything humanity had ever built before. That energy powered weapons that could crack, planets and shields that could stop small suns. Good, Ben said, because we're about to need every bit of it. Set course for the Sol system. It's time to go home. The ship turned toward Earth, its massive bulk moving through space like a mountain, given flight. Behind them, they left the nebula graveyard where they had been hiding for the past month, watching and waiting as the alien forces gathered for their final attack. As they traveled toward humanity's last stand, they picked up a distress signal from a small group of refugee ships. Ben recognized the call sign. It was Jake Morrison's transport from New Denver, along with several other civilian vessels. They were under attack by alien raiders. Captain, should we help them? Nina asked. Ben thought for a moment. Revealing themselves now would ruin the surprise they had planned for the main alien fleet. But these were innocent people who would die if nobody came to their aid. Drop us out of jump space, Ben ordered. Battle stations. The Reaper's Edge appeared in normal space like a nightmare made real. The refugee ships were scattered and trying to run while 6 alien raiders chased them down. The aliens had been playing with their prey, destroying the transport ships one by one. Jake Morrison was in the pilot seat of his transport when the massive ship appeared on his sensors. For a moment, he thought it was another alien vessel coming to finish them off. Then he saw the human markings on its hull and nearly fainted. Lisa, are you seeing this? He asked his co-pilot. Lieutenant Lisa Hayes was staring at her display in shock. That ship is 15 kilometers long. We don't have anything that big in the fleet. The alien raiders had noticed the new arrival too. They broke off their attack on the transports and moved toward the massive human ship. 6 against 1 seemed like good odds to them. They were wrong. The Reaper's Edge opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into a weapon. Beams of pure energy reached out and touched the alien ships. Where the beams touched, metal turned to gas and gas turned to nothing. In less than 10 seconds, all 6 raiders were gone. Civilian vessels, this is Captain Ben Carter of the USS Reaper's Edge, came a voice over the radio. You are safe now. Please stand by for escort to friendly space. Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Captain Carter, this is Captain Morrison, formerly of New Denver Defense Force. Sir, we thought your ship was just a legend. There was a pause before Carter replied. Legends have a way of becoming real when people need them most, Captain. Follow our course. We're all going to the same place. The refugee ships fell in behind the massive warship as it resumed course for Earth. Word spread quickly among the civilians that they were being protected by the ghost ship from the old stories. People who had given up hope began to believe, again. 3 days later, War Commander Vextar arrived at Earth with the largest alien fleet ever assembled. His armada contained ships from 7 different species, all united in their desire to destroy humanity. 3,000 warships spread out across the solar system like a metal plague. Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet that had caused him so much trouble. Soon, it would be nothing but burning rock, and the humans would be just another extinct species. Send the surrender demand, he ordered. The message was broadcast to every human receiver in the system. People of Earth, you are defeated. Your fleets are destroyed, your colonies are ash, and your time is over. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Resist, and we will make them last forever. Admiral Kate Sullivan received the message on her command ship, the orbital station Haven Point. She was in charge of Earth's defense, but she had precious little to defend with. 200 ships against 3,000. It was not a battle, it was a massacre waiting to happen. Admiral, all ships report ready for combat, her aide reported. Kate looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was moving into attack formation, taking their time because they knew they had already won. In a few hours the battle would begin and humanity would make its last stand. "Send a reply to the alien commander," Kate said. "Tell him that Earth does not surrender." As the two fleets prepared for battle, long-range sensors detected something approaching from the outer system. It was big, bigger than anything in either fleet. The sensor operator stared at his display in confusion. "Admiral, I'm getting a massive contact at the edge of sensor range. It's huge." Kate looked at the reading. The contact was moving toward Earth at high speed, but it was still too far away to identify. "What do you think it is?" "I don't know, ma'am. But whatever it is, it's coming this way fast." In the depths of space, the USS Reaper's Edge powered toward the coming battle. Captain Ben Carter stood on his bridge watching the alien fleet spread out like a cancer across his home system. For 15 years he had waited for this moment. 15 years of secret battles, hidden victories, and silent sacrifice. "Captain, we're being scanned by both fleets," Nina Walsh reported. "They know we're coming." "Good," Ben said. "Open a channel on all frequencies. It's time to introduce ourselves." The ghost ship emerged from the darkness, ready to show the galaxy that some legends were worth believing in. The USS Reaper's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Every sensor in both fleets detected its arrival at the same moment. The massive ship was bigger than anything anyone had ever seen in battle. Its dark hull was covered with weapon ports that glowed with deadly energy. Captain Ben Carter stood calmly on his bridge as thousands of alien and human eyes focused on his ship. He had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Now it was time to see if the legend was strong enough to save humanity. "Open communications on all frequencies," Ben ordered. His communications officer nodded. "All channels open, Captain." Ben's voice carried across space to every ship in both fleets. "This is Captain Ben Carter of the USS Reaper's Edge to all Zephyrian forces. You have invaded human space and attacked innocent people. You have 10 minutes to withdraw from this system before we show you why some legends should never be tested." On the alien flagship, War Commander Vex Tar stared at his tactical display in shock. The human ship was massive, but it was still just one ship against his fleet of 3,000. He quickly recovered from his surprise and opened his own communication channel. "Human Captain, you are either very brave or very stupid. One ship cannot defeat an entire armada. Surrender now and I will make your death quick." Ben's reply was calm and cold. "I tried to give you a chance to leave. You should have taken it." War Commander Vex Tar was tired of talking. "All ships, destroy that vessel immediately. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the collective." 1,000 alien ships opened fire at once. Energy beams and missile volleys filled space like a deadly light show. Any normal ship would have been vaporized in seconds by such overwhelming firepower. The Reaper's Edge was not a normal ship. The experimental shields flared to life around the massive vessel, turning the alien attack into harmless light. The ship's hull absorbed energy that would have destroyed entire fleets. When the alien barrage ended, the ghost ship hung in space completely undamaged. "Our turn," Ben said quietly. Commander Nina Walsh's fingers danced across her weapon controls. "All guns ready, Captain. Targeting the closest formation. Fire." The main guns of the Reaper's Edge spoke with the voice of thunder. Beams of pure energy reached across space and touched a group of 50 alien ships. The vessels simply disappeared, turned into atoms by weapons powered by the experimental reactor that Chief Engineer Danny Brooks had perfected over 15 years of secret development. The alien fleet stopped moving. For a moment, nobody could believe what they had just seen. 50 warships destroyed in a single shot from one enemy vessel. It was impossible. "Continue firing," Ben ordered. "Target the next formation." The ghost ship began to move through the alien fleet like death itself. Every shot from its main guns destroyed dozens of enemy vessels. The smaller weapons took care of individual ships that tried to get too close. The aliens found their most powerful weapons useless against the human ship's advanced shields. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the battle from her command station. She had spent her entire career fighting aliens, but she had never seen anything like this. One human ship was single-handedly destroying the largest alien fleet ever assembled. "Admiral, should we move our ships forward to support?" her tactical officer asked. Kate shook her head. "No. Stay back and let them work. I don't think they need our help." Lieutenant Lisa Hayes stood next to Jake Morrison in the refugee camp, on Earth's surface. They were watching the battle through the camp's communication system, along with thousands of other people. Nobody spoke. They just watched as the legend came true before their eyes. "Is this really happening?" Lisa whispered. Jake nodded slowly. The old man was right. The stories were true. Back in space, the alien fleet was trying to regroup. Sub-Commander Krell Noth had taken command after the flagship's communications were damaged. He studied the tactical display and found something that gave him hope. "Commander Vexitar, I have found a weakness in the human ship," he reported. War Commander Vexitar looked up from the damage reports. His fleet had lost over 800 ships in less than an hour. "What weakness?" "Their energy distribution system has a pattern. When they fire the main guns, their shield strength drops for exactly 3 seconds. If we can coordinate a massive attack during that window, we might be able to damage them." Vextar grabbed the communication controls. "All remaining ships, listen carefully. When the human ship fires its main guns, you will have 3 seconds to hit them with everything you have. This is our only chance." The aliens waited for their moment. When the Reaper's Edge fired its next salvo, destroying another group of ships, every remaining alien vessel fired at the same target point on the ghost ship's hull. The concentrated attack found its mark. The ship's shields flickered and failed, in one section. Alien energy beams burned through the advanced armor and struck the hull directly. For the first time in the battle, the legendary ship took damage. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Danny Brooks reported from engineering. "We've lost 2 weapon systems and our shield generators are overloading." Ben felt the ship shake under the alien assault. Red warning lights flashed across his bridge as damage reports came in from all sections. The Reaper's Edge was hurt, but it was far from dead. "Can we continue fighting?" Ben asked. "Yes, sir, but not for much longer," Danny replied. "The reactor is stable, but our defenses are failing. Another attack like that one and we'll be in serious trouble." Ben looked at the tactical display. His ship had destroyed over 1,000 alien vessels, but there were still 2,000 left. The enemy had found their weakness and would use it again. The ghost ship could not win this battle the conventional way. Nina Walsh looked up from her weapons station. "Captain, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "Tell me." "We could overload the main weapons and link them directly to the reactor. It would give us enough firepower to destroy their entire fleet in one shot." Ben understood immediately. "And destroy us in the process." "Yes, sir." The ship wouldn't survive the energy discharge. Ben looked around his bridge at the crew who had followed him into the darkness for 15 years. These people had given up everything to become ghosts in service to humanity. Now they might have to give up their lives as well. "How long do we have before they attack again?" Ben asked. "Maybe 5 minutes," Nina replied. War Commander Vextar was gathering his remaining ships for one final assault. He had lost most of his fleet, but he still had enough firepower to finish the human ship if he could hit it during its vulnerable moment again. "All ships prepare for final attack," he ordered. "This time we end this." On the bridge of the Reaper's Edge, Captain Ben Carter made the hardest decision of his life. The legend was about to become something greater than anyone had imagined, but legends always came with a price. Captain Ben Carter looked at the faces of his crew one last time. These people had followed him into 15 years of darkness and shadow. They had become ghosts so that humanity might live. Now they would become something more. "All hands. This is the captain," Ben announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to attempt something that has never been done before. I need all non-essential personnel to evacuate to the escape pods immediately. That includes our passengers." From New Denver, Jake Morrison was in the refugee section when the announcement came. He looked at Lisa Hayes with confusion. "What does he mean, evacuate?" Before anyone could answer, soldiers appeared and began guiding people toward the escape pod bays. Jake tried to resist, but a young sergeant stopped him. "Sir, captain's orders." Everyone who isn't crew needs to get off the ship right now. Why? What's happening? The sergeant's face was grim. The captain is going to save humanity, sir. But the ship won't survive it. In the escape pod bay, hundreds of refugees and non-essential crew members climbed into the small vessels that would carry them to safety. Jake found himself in a pod with 20 other people, including several children from New Denver. Through the small window, he could see the massive alien fleet surrounding them. "Will the captain be okay?" asked the little girl he had rescued from New Denver. Jake did not know how to answer. "He's going to be a hero," he said finally. On the bridge, Ben watched the escape pods launch one by one. Soon, only his core crew remained on the ship. Nina Walsh at weapons, Danny Brooks in engineering, and a handful of others who had volunteered to stay behind. "Captain, all escape pods are away," reported his communications officer. "The refugees are clear." "Good," Ben said. "Nina, are you ready?" Commander Nina Walsh looked up from her weapon controls. Her hands were steady, but Ben could see the fear in her eyes. "Weapons are connected directly to the reactor. When I fire, the energy feedback will destroy the ship. We'll have maybe 30 seconds before the explosion." "Danny, how does it look from your end?" Chief Engineer Danny Brooks wiped sweat from his forehead. "The reactor is running at maximum capacity. When the weapons overload, it's going to take the whole ship with it. But Captain, the explosion will be big enough to destroy everything, within 100 kilometers, including us." Ben nodded. He had known this moment would come eventually. From the day he had volunteered for the Ghost Ship project, he had understood that some missions required the ultimate sacrifice. "Set course for the center of the alien fleet," Ben ordered. "Maximum speed." The USS Reaper's Edge began to move toward the heart of the enemy formation. War Commander Vextar saw the human ship approaching and smiled. The damaged vessel was making one last desperate attack. His remaining 2,000 ships would destroy it easily. "All vessels prepare to fire when the human ship enters range," Vextar ordered. "This time we finish them." But Sub-Commander Krelnoth was studying his sensors with growing alarm. "Commander, the human ship's energy readings are off the scale. They're doing something to their reactor." "What do you mean?" "I think they're going to overload it. If that ship explodes in the middle of our fleet..." Vextar's eyes went wide as he understood. "All ships, retreat immediately. Get away from that vessel." But it was too late. The Reaper's Edge was already in the center of the alien formation, surrounded by hundreds of enemy ships. The massive human vessel began to glow as energy built up in its reactor core. "Nina, fire everything we have," Ben ordered. Nina Walsh pressed the firing controls. Every weapon on the ship discharged at once, sending streams of energy in all directions. Alien ships exploded like fireworks as the Ghost Ship's final attack tore through their formations. But the real damage was yet to come. "Reactor overload in 10 seconds, Danny Brooks announced. "Captain, it's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was mine," Ben replied. "All of you have been the finest crew any captain could ask for." The USS Reaper's Edge erupted in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth itself. The explosion tore a hole in space, destroying everything within a vast radius. War Commander Vextar's flagship vanished in the blast, along with most of his remaining fleet. The few alien ships that survived were damaged and scattered. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from her command station as the alien armada simply disappeared. Where moments before there had been 2,000 enemy ships, now there was only empty space and the fading glow of the explosion. "All ships advance and secure the area," she ordered. "Check for survivors." The human fleet moved forward cautiously. They found wreckage from hundreds of alien vessels, but very few intact ships. The enemy force that had threatened to destroy humanity was gone, broken by the sacrifice of one legendary vessel and its ghost crew. 3 hours later, search teams found the escape pods carrying the refugees and surviving crew members. Jake Morrison was among the first to be rescued. As he was helped aboard a human ship, he looked back toward where the Reaper's Edge had made its final stand. "Did we win?" he asked. "Yes," replied the rescue officer. "The alien fleet is destroyed. Earth is safe." Jake nodded, but he felt no joy. The victory had come at a terrible cost. Captain Ben Carter and his crew had given their lives to save humanity. 6 months later, the war was over. The remaining alien forces had surrendered or fled to the far edges of the galaxy. Humanity began the long process of rebuilding their destroyed worlds. A memorial was built in Earth orbit, not far from where the final battle had taken place. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the gathered crowd as she read the inscription aloud. To the crew of the USS Reaper's Edge. They became ghosts so others could live in the light. Their sacrifice saved humanity and proved that legends can be real when people need them most. Jake Morrison, now promoted to major, stood in the crowd with Lisa Hayes. She had been promoted to captain and given command of a new ship. Both of them wore black armbands in honor of the fallen. "Do you think anyone will remember them?" Lisa asked. Jake looked up at the memorial, where the names of Ben Carter and his crew were carved in metal that would last forever. "Yes," he said. "Every time someone tells the story of how humanity survived, they'll remember the ghost ship that came out of the darkness to save us all." Far away, on the rebuilt colony of New Denver, an old veteran named Pete Collins sat with a group of young soldiers. The war was over, but there were always new stories to tell. "Did I ever tell you about the USS Reaper's Edge?" he asked with a smile. The legend lived on.